Welcome to Magic Beyond the Books. Today we're talking about the first meeting of the Slug Club on the Hogwarts Express. I'm Calen.
And I'm Rene. Warning, there are Harry Potter spoilers from all of the books in this episode. So let's get into it. This is from Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which is the 6th book. This is chapter 7, that's also called the Slug Club. This part of the scene happens on pages 141 to 148, or if you're listening to audiobook, it should be around 20 minutes into that chapter. Basically, to sum up the scene, Harry and Neville get invitations while on the Hogwarts Express from Professor Slughorn to join him for a little lunch. And then they join him and a group of well-connected students for some of his packed lunch. Not the lunch cart that the lower class citizens eat, but his special lunch in his compartment. And yeah, that's pretty much what happens in their first meeting.
But first, let's get into our listener question of the week.
So our listener question of the week is, what are the most Harry Potter-ish emojis, and which Harry Potter emojis need to be added?
I mean, right off the bat, there is a wizard one, right? Wizard and a witch, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming we're only going off of the iPhone because we don't mess with the green bubbles.
Yeah, I went hard on this question. I went through all of the emojis and tried to find anything that I felt like was the least bit Harry Potter. And yes, the main ones would definitely be there's a wizard, there's a witch, and there's male and female witch looking one, and then there's one that looks like a wizard with a long beard.
Okay.
Very Gandalf-y look.
It's technically called a mage. So maybe just another word for a wizard. But they also have a magic wand. And then one that isn't necessarily related to magic, but the lightning bolt. I think people would be quite disappointed if we didn't mention the lightning bolt.
Yeah, we definitely use the lightning bolt a lot for us. And well, yeah, the magic wand though, I feel like it makes me think of a wand that a magician uses to make a rabbit come out of his hat or something. It's got white on the ends.
Yeah, which I'm sure that our Hogwarts Harry Potter universe magicians have done in the past, right? I think we referenced that last episode. The Fat Friar got executed because he was making too much of a kerfuffle with his little magic tricks. But I agree with you though that the magic wand is more like the like what you would see as a stage performer or whatever.
Yeah, they have a ghost, like your typical Halloween ghost kind of thing, and a pumpkin, which definitely kind of feel Harry Potter Halloween. They have footprints, which made me think of the Marauders map. It's not shoes, but it's bare feet footprints, but I still feel like it kind of gets the same vibe.
They have all the animals.
Yes,
right? They have the snake, lion, eagle, and then a Hufflepuff, the badger.
They do. But they're not consistent. The lion is the lion head, but the badger is a full body badger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The styles are a little bit, but yeah. And they have other kind of Harry Potter animals. They have a spider and a spider web, owls, wolf animals. They have socks for Dobby.
Okay.
They have some magical creatures. They have vampires, zombie kind of things.
A dragon.
Oh yeah, dragon. They have a troll. They have mermaid, mermaid, merman. Or I don't know if it's technically a troll. It's some greenish guy with a.
It's a troll.
Club.
Yeah, no, it's listed as a troll. That's what I'm seeing.
And then fairy type things.
Yeah. But if we were going to say what are the most Harry Potter emojis, probably number 1, lightning bolt. Number 2, wizard. Even though the wizard isn't necessarily, not all of them are wearing the hats. That's, I feel like, is it more maybe typical in the books? I don't remember that from the movies that they're wearing the like typical pointed hat, like the like what we just did an episode on, the sorting hat.
Yeah, it's more in the books that they wear hats, like in grown witches and wizards wear hats, and then I think the students wear hats as well. I think, in the first and maybe even the second movie, they have sometimes like the students will be wearing these pointed black hats.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
Not
think it's
necessarily
like
the
that.
brim.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's like that for like the students, but I think grown witches and wizards maybe have the ones with the brim.
gotcha. You got to earn your brims, not
Yeah.
necessarily wings. I do remember Arthur Weasley wearing a hat like that pretty frequently in the books or in the
Oh
movies.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. In the
Yeah,
movies, yeah, yeah.
this is like work attire, which doesn't make sense because like he's a Muggle studies. Maybe he should be dressing like a Muggle.
That's true.
Maybe
To
wearing a
blend
soccer
in better,
jersey.
yeah. Yeah, I was thinking like which ones are the most. I mean, they have the ones that are like beer look like how I think butterbeer is described in the books, right? Like it's foaming
Yeah,
and the right
yeah.
color and everything. I don't know. They have a train one that's red, that looks like the Hogwarts Express. They have some
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
hourglasses.
Yeah, they have a lot of the emojis that you could be able to use for if you were trying to get your point across, or do like if you're gonna essentially make like a chapter label for each of the chapters. I think you could probably get a lot of the chapters, assign them emojis and maybe even have a guessing game based off of those emojis or something like that. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Maybe you can do that as like a segment or something. I
like
don't know,
I'm
but
just thinking like the Slug Club. It could be like I bet they have a slug or like some sort of snail, and then they probably have a club.
or like a
Like maybe
couple
not a
people.
club, or like they have the cards, like the playing cards club, or
Oh yeah.
they don't have a like what I was thinking a club as like a a troll club, like it's something that a
Yeah.
troll would be carrying.
I think that they could have a better wand or like a hand holding a wand or a wand casting a spell. That would be a good one.
Yeah,
Or they have a broom, but like if you could have a person flying on a broom or more of a witchy broom than like your classic sweeping the floor kind of
yeah.
broom.
Do they have like a potion?
I didn't find
I
one.
don't think like a witch's brew or like a pot, like a cauldron maybe.
Yeah, a cauldron would be good.
They don't have cauldron.
They have like a crystal ball kind of thing that's
Oh yeah,
sort of magic-y.
yeah. But those people are weird. The seers, they're not real.
It'd be good if they also like a snitch or even just a plain red ball to kind of be like a quaffle.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah,
all of their balls that they have are like specific, like a baseball. They're very specific of a ball. Or just like we're talking about the witch or wizard's hat, just the hat alone instead of like a person, for the
yeah,
sorting hat.
yeah. It could be a sorting hat or just a wizard's hat or just like something like that. Yeah, I agree with you. I think I would like to see some sort of like bubbling potion. That'd be nice. Because you could use that emoji with like mom's making her soup again, and then you have a bubbling like green cauldron or whatever.
Yeah, or like they have vampire and all the things, but they don't have werewolf, and that seems like another classic,
True. Yeah.
monster. That's not just a Harry Potter thing.
Yeah. 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 Maybe some of the more of the monsters too, but I say the potions are I would like a potions one, a cauldron maybe, and then you're saying a hat probably would be the most missed one maybe, right? Or a better wand. I think that's what
Or
you
maybe
said.
a better wand. Yeah.
Like if you had
I don't
one
know.
wish.
I don't know. There's so many things. Even I'm like looking, I try to make a list. A better castle. Like they have a castle, but it looks like princessy castle,
Oh,
not so much
true.
like Hogwarts.
Not
But
like
yeah,
a
I guess maybe
classic
a better
castle.
wand because there's so much Harry Potter stuff, and there's other stuff with people like having a wood wand casting
Hmm.
spells, like other
Yeah.
wizard related things, right?
Yeah. And not like the sparkles, because the sparkles are I feel kind of
Princess.
princess or uh too stereotypical like magic wizard type thing. Like maybe just like a little mist that's coming out or something like that. It's like a little blue trail of magical, whatever.
Yeah. I guess I'm looking back through these emojis. I think probably one of my favorite underrated Harry Potter one is they actually have a feather that makes me think, like, because they're always writing with these like
Ah,
feather quills.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. So to sum it up, I would say most desired for me would be some sort of cauldron.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with you on that one. Like, if we had to only add one, I think some sort of cauldron potion type of thing.
But close second is a wand with more realistic looking magic, not the fake magic.
Give us the real magic.
So back to the episode.
The Slug Club is like the Finer Things Club from The Office.
Yeah, it's more. They're the people who are admitted to it are expected to keep up this mystique of, like you said, finer things, and we're all here to better the school and whatever. But like all of them know they just got chosen because their parents know somebody or something like that. So like they have to kind of keep up this act with Professor Slughorn. So I think the Finer Things Club is a good comparison.
Yeah, I just thought of that now on the spot, but it really is because they eat their special food and it's very exclusive. Do you want to start going through like the timeline, or do you want to kind of jump around?
I guess the chapter is not specifically just the Slug Club. The chapter is a little bit misleading in the naming, because there are things that happen prior and then there's things that happen after, and you kind of get the Slug Club is sort of just like slapped in the middle. It is a big portion of it and has a lot of the, I guess, information that is talked about and sort of like leads into the conversation that happens later. The first part of the chapter is them getting on the Hogwarts Express, and then Harry has to sort of go off by himself because Ron and Hermione are now prefects. So he finds himself sitting in a compartment with Luna and Neville, and then somewhere along the way, somebody comes and gives them an invitation, or a letter at least, and Professor Slughorn invites him to his compartment for a meeting, I believe. I'm not sure how he specifically worded it, right?
Yeah, I think he just said like lunch. I don't. He doesn't call it, or maybe he says it at the end that it's called the Slug Club, but he doesn't say that in the invitation.
He says, "Harry, I would be delighted if you would join me for a bite of lunch in compartment C. Sincerely, Professor H.E.F. Slughorn."
Yes.
That sounds like a one-on-one, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he knows because he's in the same compartment as Neville, and Neville also gets one.
Oh, true. Yeah.
But it's not very clear that what it's about at all. I mean, Harry kind of knows because he met Slughorn previously. He gets a little bit of a sense that, oh, maybe this is more of this meeting with students. But I think Neville thinks it's detention.
Like, I just like that Neville, he's just embraced this feeling of, oh no, like it's always happening to me, but I guess this is just my life, and he's just like me and Harry. At least I'm with Harry, he's popular, and he at least he'll keep me company. But he's got his frog. Does he bring his frog or his toad? Does he bring
Trevor?
Trevor, yeah. Does he bring Trevor the toad? Probably not. I would hope not.
I hope not. Yeah, I hope he left him with Luna.
Yeah, Luna would probably get along with Trevor pretty well. But it's a good thing he left the toad, because he definitely would have been looked like upside down at when he got to the compartment, and there was a bunch of other not necessarily like esteemed other students, but other students that they they're well connected, right? And I guess we can go through who is in this compartment when they get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Harry and Neville are there. Then you also have Blaise Zabini, which is one of the first other person that Slughorn introduces them to. Then you have Cormac McLaggen, and Marcus Belby, also in the compartment. And then there is also Ginny.
Yeah, and Slughorn, obviously, which Slughorn's full name, if you're wondering what the HEF stands for, is Professor Horace Eugene Flaccus Slughorn.
Ugh, Flaccus.
Not the best name.
Yeah.
We can go into each of those people, but I watched the movie to compare. I didn't watch the full movie, but I watched a scene from the movie. They in the movie, instead of meeting him on the train, they meet they go on the train, they get to school, all that stuff. They're in Hogsmeade and they run into him and he invites them. And then they have it where they're just having a dinner. That's where like their first meeting is. And he has other students. So he has Flora and Hestia Caro. And then he has another boy there that I don't know. I couldn't figure out who he was. And Hermione joins in on the movie version of the first like meeting. But in the books, Hermione's part of the Slug Club. She just doesn't get invited till later because he doesn't know like who she is.
And I believe Ginny only gets invited because Slughorn sees her curse somebody, right? And then he's like, "Oh, that was pretty cool," and then he invites her.
Yeah, she is the only one who's here who hasn't been invited because they're like famous or related to someone famous. Yeah, she got caught doing the bat bogey spell on Zacharias Smith, and he thought it was a good spell, and he's like, "Hey, come to my party."
Yeah, I thought this was interesting that so Horace Slughorn is a Slytherin, and in this compartment with them is 4 Gryffindors, 1 Slytherin, and then 1 Ravenclaw. So no Hufflepuffs. They're, I guess unimpressive to
Slughorn.
to Slughorn. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Only 1 Slytherin.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think this kind of shows too that he seems to have gone away from involving himself in Death Eaters, because I think a lot of his Slug Club in the past was like all Slytherins and all Death Eaters, and now he's like, oh, can't get wrapped up in that again.
Yeah, I'm sure that at one point he had like several actual Death Eaters that were part of the Slug Club, and he was like, maybe they'll get me Quidditch tickets or blah 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 blah, or they're get me this, and then they ended up being like the worst people ever, right? I believe also they mention he asks Zabini about Theodore Knott. Theodore Knott is the son of a Death Eater, right? So once Theodore's dad got wrapped up in that, he was like, you're persona non grata from the Slug Club. So
yeah, Theodore Knott and Draco Malfoy are probably 2 of the students that are the most surprising that he did not invite, that are from like prestigious families, right?
Yeah. Out of the 6 people that are in there, really only one is like Zabini is. What does he say about Zabini?
Zabini has a famous mom that's like supposed to be super beautiful and has a bunch of husbands. It made me think of Evelyn Hugo, that whole like she has 7 husbands.
Yeah.
They say that all of the husbands like mysteriously died.
Yeah. I guess this is an explicit podcast. He has a MILF as a mom.
Yeah. And Zabini's probably very handsome.
Yeah, probably. And then you have McLagan. I'm trying to get to the guy because I have a little tidbit that I would like to ask you about. His uncle Damocles. Who is that? I remember
That's
seeing that.
Marcus Belby.
Do you know where the origin? Not necessarily origin, but there's a saying called the Sword of Damocles. Do you know what that's from?
I've never heard that.
Okay, the Sword of Damocles is essentially it's in Greek mythology, and it's used to essentially symbolize like something big hanging over like a leader's head, essentially. So I believe the story was Damocles was flattering his king Dionysus, exclaiming that Dionysus was truly fortunate as a great man of power and authority without peer, surrounded by magnificence. In response, Dionysus offered to switch places with Damocles for one day so that Damocles could taste that fortune firsthand. Damocles eagerly accepted the king's proposal. Damocles sat on the king's throne and amid embroidered rugs, fragrant perfumes, and blah, 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 blah. But Dionysus, who had made enemies during his reign, arranged that a sword would hang above the throne, held at the pommel only by a single hair of a horse's tail, to evoke the sense of what it is to be king. So you're in ever-present danger. The leaders of nations, when they make these large decisions and big, very poignant decisions, very impactful decisions, there's a sword of Damocles hanging over them as an ever-present danger of somebody who might want to take your seat, or the people might revolt or something like that. So I just thought that was interesting because I've only seen that word or that name in a very specific context. I really haven't seen it anywhere else.
That kind of, maybe this doesn't mean the same thing, but it kind of makes me think of like the saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Just like you're bearing a lot of responsibility, and maybe it's not as glamorous as someone from the outside might think.
Yeah. There's always this ever-present danger with people who are leading, and maybe there's this ever-present danger of people who inherit fame from their relatives. They're always expected to uphold a certain standard with the people that maybe their name holds, that is the sword of Damocles, right? So maybe that's what they were going for. But I just thought that was interesting because, like, again, I've never seen that name in any other context other than Greek mythology story. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I know J.K. Rowling is very specific about the names that she chooses. So there must be something there. Also, the uncle Damocles is the one that invented the wolfsbane potion, which that's why he's, famous, and that's why Slughorn reveres him. I think maybe there's something there about the fact, because what the wolfsbane potion does is it lets the wizard or witch keep their like presence of mind when they turn into a werewolf, instead of just kind of going crazy. So basically they can turn and then just kind of hang out, and they like stop themselves basically, instead of just like running around biting people. And that's what Lupin takes in the third year, and he just kind of says he like curls under his desk, and when he makes his transition, you're controlled, but you're still like dangerous. I don't know. That's like the sword of Damocles comparison. I'm not sure.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it was a stretch, and it's cool. It's a cool name, So like it's not. Maybe she heard it and was like, kind of like stretched to make that comparison because you like the name, but who knows?
Yeah, but that's Marcus Belby's uncle, and that's how he gets the invite.
And then Cormac McLaggen. How is he famous?
He has Uncle Tiberius, which Slughorn's friendly with, but I didn't see anything in the book or in the wiki about what Tiberius did to be famous or be, renowned. Cormac McLaggen is also friendly with Bertie Higgs and Rufus Scrimgeour, which we know Rufus Scrimgeour is the current Minister of Magic at the time.
So I'm reading about Tiberius. Apparently, he was just highly influential at the ministry. He was close with the Ministry of Magic, hunting for nogtails.
Yes, I looked up nogtails. Don't look it up. It's disturbing.
I already did.
Nogtails are demons. They look like a stunted pig it's like a pig with long legs and narrow black eyes. It's very creepy. And
yeah,
apparently,
that is odd.
Yeah, right? Like they're found in rural areas of Europe, Russia, and North and South America. And they sneak into pigsties and like bring disease to farms. Yeah.
I don't know where that would have come from,
So, but I guess some witches and wizards hunt them for sport. So,
yeah, I wonder how they taste.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe the hunting is to maybe help cull the herd or whatever. Where they just trying to keep the population down, so there isn't as much disease that's passed. Yeah. It's sort of just like a service that these people perform for farmers or something.
Yeah, I think they're probably doing that. Like that's common in lots of places. People hunt certain animals to maintain levels of species when it's like an invasive species in an area, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's Cormac McLaggen. So, and to clear, so Marcus Belby is the Ravenclaw. He's a 7th year, and Cormac McLaggen that we just talked about, he's a Gryffindor, and he's a 7th year.
And then later on, Cormac McLaggen, I don't know if we want to get too far into the I guess future parts, but like Cormac, he is used by Hermione to sort of make Ron jealous. And then also Cormac was the guy that attempted to become the keeper, and Ron beat him out in the tryout, right? So there's a little bit more context that goes into, he's not just introduced to the Slug Club as another name. He sort of plays other parts in the storyline as well.
Yeah, and I don't think they included this in the movie, but in the books, Cormac McLaggen, when Ron gets poisoned, Cormac McLaggen, since he was like second runner up to being keeper, he plays as a reserve in like one game, I think. So he kind of comes up a little bit in this book, but I don't think he comes. I guess he's a seventh year, so we don't really see him again.
Doesn't come back for the Battle of Hogwarts. Maybe he's just got other better things to do or something. Maybe he's out haunting.
He's got to go get
nogtails with Tiberius.
He might, and don't quote me. I don't know. Maybe he was in the Battle of Hogwarts. I just don't remember.
Yeah, his name just doesn't ring a bell,
And then there's also Blaise Zabini. He's a Slytherin 6th year, and like we said, his mother is the famous MILF. We talked about Ginny, and she's a Gryffindor 5th year. It seems like other than Ginny, everyone's 6th year and above. So I think Slughorn goes for people that are older, a little bit more mature, about to go out in the workforce and go make connections for him, right?
Yeah, definitely. He's trying to get a little bit more on the nose, for when they're like, he's trying to essentially be in their head a little bit more recent to when they graduate, so that they are more likely to sort of think of him when they think of professors or something like that, right? Maybe you have a first year professor that's really nice to you and whatever, but Professor Slughorn's going to slide in there at the last second and kind of get in the middle of your memories of that teacher and kind of insert himself in there. Slughorn, like this club is very notoriety or fame or skill isn't necessarily like genetic, right? So like Ginny, obviously she didn't get into the Slug Club because of like we said, she didn't get in there because of her association with her family, right? She just was like talented, right? And then she became part of the Slug Club, right? But like Zabini or McLaggen or Belby or even Harry and Neville, like, I mean, specifically Neville, like they're not like talented. Like what I'm trying to say is like the logic of Slughorn is just like, if they are if their parents are well connected, then they will be well connected maybe too. But that doesn't always work out. Like if you have a idiot kid, right, and they're just like doing badly in school or something like that, and then you as a parent, they come up to you and is like, oh yeah, my professor wants like these Quidditch tickets, and you would be like, well, you're not that great of a student, so like we obviously know why he's talking to you and trying to make an impression on you. So like maybe it's a little bit more just upfront and not necessarily it's not as much finesse as I would think like a well-seasoned professor would be when it comes to like making these connections.
Yeah, he's pretty like direct about it. And then and not only like he invites all these people and then he brings them to their compartment and then literally looks at them individually and like goes through, okay, yeah, like without saying it exactly, he basically is saying, you got invited here because you have this famous uncle.
Yeah, he was basically like pulling out their like NBA rookie cards and like reading off their stats, like this person and that person and this person, and this is why you're here. This is the only reason why you're here. Like maybe it would have been much more well served. Like there doesn't seem to be a social aspect to this. It just seems like Slughorn is trying to get to know these people, and like it's like only a utilitarian type of thing where it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna get it over with. I'm gonna get all of them in one room in the same room at once. And then I'm just going to go over them and just like sort of just make a very like brief association with them. And you can see that too, like in the movies, or they try and get that point across where it's like Slughorn seems like all these meetings are the most boring probably meeting of all time. And it's just Slughorn leading the conversation. It's like there's no social aspect to Harry and Zabini. He doesn't encourage Harry and Zabini to like become more social with each other, like, or Cormac and like any of them, they're not really talking to each other, right? They're just sort of just there at the request of Slughorn.
Yeah, I think he's like looking out for himself and making these connections for himself. I think sometimes some of the like his Christmas party, it seems like a more social event where people are meeting people and he's making introductions. It's less of a club and more of a like, let me handpick students that I want to have a connection with.
Mm-hmm. I guess
Good.
we could talk about Marcus. He kind of gets himself off to a really bad start, right? As a first impression, right? What does he choke on? He chokes on some
Some pheasant.
yeah, some pheasant. Yeah, Slughorn has to cast a spell to like get a kind of do the Heimlich maneuver on him.
Yeah. The lunch menu was pheasant, rolls, and pies.
I'm assuming like some dessert pies, not necessarily like a like a quiche or
Like a
like a
meat
lunch type
pie.
pie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a meat pie.
I think because they described it as he's passed around pheasant, then after that he passed around rolls, and then after that he passed around pies. So I'm assuming they're dessert pies. And Belby doesn't get any pie, which after he chokes, and then he says that he doesn't really know his uncle that well because I guess his dad and the uncle don't get along. Yeah, and the Belby in the movies is a lot different than the Belby in the books. In the books, he's described as being super thin and nervous and kind of like awkward and chokes and is like not trying to answer the questions right. And then the movie version, he's like they show him as being like super gluttonous and he's just like eating a bunch of ice cream and Slughorn doesn't necessarily I don't know, he's kind of just like making jokes about how he's eating a lot. It just seems like they
Yeah,
like the character was kind of the same but very different.
yeah, slightly opposite, like slightly opposite side of the like comedic relief part. Yeah, Belby doesn't get off the best first impression.
Yeah, so essentially as he like Belby was the first one, he doesn't make a great impression. He kind of goes around the room and does a sort of interview, if you will, of all the students, which tells us, the audience, why they were all there, invited there. Then he leaves Harry for last, and he's very much like Harry is the prized jewel, the chosen. This is right after all the news comes out that Harry's the quote unquote chosen one, and there might be a prophecy about him and all this stuff. So even though Harry's like always famous through the whole books because of The Boy Who Lived, he's having another peak in fame, just like in general. And I think Horace is, capitalizing on that. And then we kind of get like some great Ginny. Zabini is very not impressed with Harry, and Ginny is very much coming to Harry's defense. Ginny is like the only one at this party that's like not concerned about what kind of impression she makes.
Yeah, she's very like the epitome of the I don't really give a fuck about anything. Like she didn't really like get invited to this. She just got invited to this like ad hoc. So like what does she have to like I guess lose? She's just there for the free food. Yeah, at that point like she doesn't have anything to lose at this point other than not being invited to boring meetings, right? She can kind of mix it up a little bit more than
Yeah, she's a little bit along for the ride. It actually makes me think of when I was in college, I had some meeting and I came out of the meeting and some friends of mine were getting ready to compete in this, I don't know what to call it, like a relay race scavenger hunt thing around campus. And this was during homecoming time and it was like for homecoming points. And so I come out of this meeting and they say, "Oh, hey, Rene, will you join our team? And we're going to do this little like race thing, scavenger hunt around campus." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, whatever." And I joined their team and I'm just having fun. I don't even have any context for this. I joined their team. We run around, we do this relay race, and our team ends up winning. And then they were all joking with me, like, "Oh, Renee just like walks onto the team, and then the team wins."
good luck
That's
charm.
that's like
Beginner's luck.
Ginny. She just
Yeah.
like walked into this, and she's like, Slughorn loves her.
Yeah. I feel like he would maybe not necessarily value, but like she's making like she's doing what he invited her there, like off of her reputation that he invited her there on. Like she hecked someone and she was mixing it up. She's feisty, and she's showing that she's feisty in this meeting, in this beginner meeting as well.
Yeah, and he earlier when he talks about Lily Evans, later Lily Potter, to Harry, he describes her as being vivacious and would give me cheeky answers. And I feel he's kind of showing that he values that in a student. And I don't know if he's making a parallel, or the author's making a parallel here between Lily and Ginny, like they're supposed to be similar and that they're a little bit more outspoken.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they are. Now that you say that, like, it definitely is probably what they're trying to do right there, make a little bit of a parallel, especially when Harry is the center point of both of those sort of little blurbs, right? So yeah, I definitely think that the author is trying to make a parallel between Ginny and Lily.
But yeah, he kind of like he tries to get some stuff out of Harry. Harry doesn't really give him much. He like doesn't want to talk about the ministry thing. Ginny and Neville kind of defend him, but then they don't really want to talk about the ministry fight. So Slughorn just kind of seems to give up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he knows when when the battle is lost. Maybe he doesn't necessarily want to press too hard because I think he still understands. What he doesn't have all the leverage, yet in this situation, so he's not going to try and push too hard. There's all this time left in the year. It's just the first meeting that he's sort of just kind of getting his foot in the door of meeting these people, these students.
And then they must be with him for like hours because they say that he doesn't release them until it starts to get dark and they have about a half hour left on the train ride. So I'm not really sure what they talk about for the rest of the time.
Yeah, so I have a quote here. The afternoon wore on with more anecdotes about illustrious wizards Slughorn had taught, all of them who had been delighted to join what he called the Slug Club at Hogwarts. Harry could not wait to leave, but couldn't see how to do so politely. And then finally, the train emerged from yet another long, misty stretch into a red sunset. And then Slughorn realizes that it's late, and then lets them all go. And then he says, McLaggen, you must drop by and borrow that book on nogtails. He lets them go after essentially just being super long-winded about random people that these students have no idea who they are, and a very stereotypical like old professor just kind of going on and on without any thought about who they're talking to.
I mean, some people they definitely probably know, like Gwen Jones is a famous Quidditch player, right? They would watch sports, like some people, but yeah, it's like someone just, if you're just sitting there and someone is just talking and talking about all the famous people that they know and how like well connected they are, like that's probably one of my like least favorite things.
Yeah, for sure. That's what Slughorn does. He is like the prototypical like collector of people, right? Not necessarily a collector of like actual people, but like collector of like connections to people. He loves to do that. That's his main thing. That's why he came back to Hogwarts, right? He was like trying to. Well, actually, how did they convince him? Because Harry and Dumbledore go to the house, and then what do they say to him to bring him back?
Dumbledore kind of uses Harry as like,
right.
Here's another, person for your collection, which I think that was Dumbledore's intent. But then Harry makes some comments to him, like him and Harry are having a conversation alone when Dumbledore steps out. And I think Harry kind of scares him into wanting to go to Hogwarts because he makes a couple comments like, oh, you still stay in touch with all these people? And then Slughorn says, no, I haven't been in touch with anyone for over a year. And I think it's hitting him like how long he's been on the run, kind of. Mm-hmm. And then he also, Harry says to Slughorn, well, Hogwarts is the safest place because you're near Dumbledore and none of those professors die. So you're basically going to be protected. So I think it's like, oh, I don't have to like jump homes and stay in muggle houses and all these things. I can just hang out in one place and I'm theoretically safe because I'm near Dumbledore.
Yeah, so maybe this is like a reason for him to like refill the coffers. Maybe this is why there are 4 Gryffindors and 1 Ravenclaw in the Slug Club. He's trying to like rebalance he's trying to rebalance his roster of acquaintances, right? So that he's not caught in this weird spot again where he only knows Slytherins or whatever. And I guess that's a good point. Even though what you said was kind of funny because obviously there's this obvious like curse with the defense against the dark arts position, right? You have like you mentioned, like none of those professors die, but they do become werewolves, and they are essentially tortured and imperious and polyjuice potioned by Death Eaters, and what else happens to them?
Okay, for the
They
record,
get possessed by Voldemort, and they get their memory wiped, and they end up in an insane asylum.
the only person that dies is Quirrell, and that's pretty much his own fault. So,
right.
Mad
Yeah.
Eye Moody doesn't die. Lupin was always a werewolf.
Yeah.
That's why I think the movie is a little bit weird that they included Flora and Hestia Caro in the first Slug Club meeting, because it seemed like he was getting away from, Death Eater related people, and we know that the Caros are brother and sister Death Eaters that we see later in the 7th book. So that doesn't make as much sense to me. Like, I'm not really sure why they were included in the movie, other than maybe just like fill seats. I don't.
Yeah. Maybe look at a little bit more of a full room.
We know, I was trying to make a list of all the Slug Club members that we know of. It's kind of unclear because some people he specifically mentions a lot of people. So I don't know if we're supposed to assume that everyone that Slughorn ever mentions was in the Slug Club. Because some people he says like, oh, this was one of my favorite students. They, which you can assume they were in the Slug Club. But other people he's like, oh yeah, I knew your father. Like I listened to a podcast and it seemed like they were listing just everyone he ever mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of gray area, but like we know we can go through people that we do know. For example, like we talked about Lily Evans, who becomes Lily Potter. She got invited because her vivaciousness and she was good at potions. Dirk Cresswell, the head of the Goblin Liaison Office.
Is it? Did we mention that recently with Forenzi, with the something liaison office?
Oh, there's the Centaur Liaison Office
that never gets
used. Yeah.
Okay. Never mind.
So they have a lot of liaison offices, apparently. I assume that the Goblin Liaison Office gets used a little bit more because they have like Gringotts and stuff. Then you have Barnabas Cuff, who's the editor of the Daily Prophet. Ambrosius Flume is the manager of Honeydukes. So that's definitely a good contact to have, especially with Slughorn's eating habits.
Yeah, definitely. You can get a better being associated with the manager of Honeydukes, I would assume he'd be able to get a better menu than pheasant rolls and pies.
His lunch, or maybe we're missing, like they didn't say all the things he packed, but it is a little bit incomplete, it seems. And they said that the pheasant was cold.
I don't know. Maybe it was just because that was actually at the beginning of the scene when they mentioned the pheasant was cold, not after the long rambling of old professor, right? That was another thing. I wonder how nice the compartments for the professors are versus the compartments for the students, like going on the train, because we know there's a prefect compartment, right? And they just sort of just like, if they want to, just chill in there, right? I wonder what, maybe there's a better bed, more snacks. Like some luxury hotel rooms have a better like snack suite, like with like very specific like chocolates or whatever, right? And we know the prefects have a nicer bathroom, right? They have
so they probably have a nicer
bubbles.
compartment.
Yeah. So I wonder what's in there. Some free snacks. Maybe the snack cart kind of leaves some stuff for them.
So. I mean, it's he says this is in compartment C, so I assume it's alphabetical. So he's got to be near the front. Yeah, like who's in front of him, but also like why was Lupin in a student compartment?
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Maybe he's just like he's like I don't want to feel better than these students. He's just like a man of the people, right?
Yeah. He's like, I don't need it.
Or maybe he knew that the Debentures would be there or something like that, and he knew he needed me to protect him or something. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Slughorn, one thing you can say about him, he's not an everyday man. He is like, I'm going to enjoy the finer things of life.
Yeah, if he's offered it, he's going to take it. You know?
Which that's one of the things I like about Slughorn. Slughorn's not my favorite character. I mean, do you think you would be friends with him?
No. I don't think I would like him at all. He just seems like the guy that is just too upfront about his motives, you know? Like he needs to be a little bit more have a little bit more finesse in how he goes about things and making relationships. It just seems way too on the nose about how he's going about these interactions with these students. And he's not that good of like a talker either. Like he's just like talking about things like, oh, you had to be there type things, or like stuff like that. So, and just talking about people that they don't know, you know. So that just sounds like a person I wouldn't necessarily like to associate with. Yeah, like he like has a Rolodex of all the people that he's met, and then he like reads off their stats essentially because
Yeah.
he's like, now I've added them to my roster, you know, and I can kind of like use them as social currency, right? But I was
The
also
kids don't know what like a Rolodex is though, so I don't.
a contact list, you
It's-
know.
There's like you
Um,
scroll through your address book in your phone. There
yeah,
used to
yeah,
kids. There used to be a printed version of that. We used to use
uh
paper and
huh,
pencil.
uh huh. But I thought of this question, sort of same along the lines of what we were talking about. So, would you want to be in the Slug Club? And then, do you think that you would have been added to any type of Slug Club in your life? Like, not necessarily a specific Slug Club, right? But like, do you think that you would have filled the bill of any sort of like Slug Club type thing?
I am not a hobnobber, so I don't think that I would be. I would be bottom of the list. Don't think I would be invited to anything like this. I'm not the kind of person that's just gonna have like shallow conversation and talk to people just because they're famous or because they're X, Y, and Z. So I don't think I would be get invited to the real Slug Club or anything close to it.
Yeah, neither do I. I definitely don't, like you said, hobnobber. I actually have never heard that word before.
I
Um,
don't know if hobnobber is a word, but I know
no,
I've
that
heard
that was the
hobnobbing.
no, that was the correct use of the word, I believe. I don't do that either. You know, I am a friend of the common man. Not
You're a
necessarily the
Lupin.
I'm a Lupin. I would slum it in the compartments with the students. What's up, fellow kids? You know, stuff like that. Um, this is what a phone used to look like. You guys, you need to look at, change your hand gesture for the phone.
I looked up hobnobber. Here's the definition: someone who frequently spends time or associates with others, especially those who are important or famous. So apparently, I did use
Yeah,
that word right.
no, it was
Okay,
great. It was a very on the nose, on the spot usage of the word.
thanks.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been in any sort of slug club. But have you ever met, like, how many people do you think you would have met that would be part of the slug club? Obviously, you don't have to name names, but like, have you met any hobnobbers in your life? Like, how many hobnobbers have you
A
been
lot of
around?
hobnobbers.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
I've met a lot. I'm the person who gets is just trying to kill time at a party, and I talk to people, and I get caught up with a hobnobber, and I'm just like trying to get out of that conversation
Yeah.
where they're just talking about like listing off their Rolodex of famous people. Do you think that you associate or like meet with a lot of hobnobbers in your life?
No. So I'll say this. No, I don't think I associate a lot with hobnobbers. Like I said, I'm a friend of the common man. If I was at a party and I didn't know anybody, I would I wouldn't like go towards like the person that's also on the outs, but maybe I would just sort of just try and like slide into like another group that looks like they're having a good time. I'm not trying to find the people that are the most popular in the party that and try and like make friends with them. So no, I don't think I really know many people that, are the hobnobbers, but I have met a lot of people in the past, just being associated with the football team. There are a lot of people who you come across that are that sort of thing where they're trying to like climb the ladder, and you not necessarily are like become part of those conversations, but like you will meet those people, and then it's like, oh, that person has their goals. Like they are being ambitious and trying to climb the ladder and trying to grease elbows and sort of like talk their way, and make
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah, you strike me as the kind of person who gets into these situations, or like, like you genuinely love football. You get to the level where you're working with like a D1 collegiate football team because you love football, and then you just happen to like associate and meet like famous people, but you're not there like, oh, let me try to like buddy up to this guy or something.
Yeah, yeah. You might have seen me on the sideline in TV, but I was not trying to be seen on the sideline, right? To get back to the point, I'm not necessarily I'm not trying to associate myself with the hobnobbers, right? It just so happened that I was a part of an industry where a lot of hobnobbing was going on, right?
Yeah, how many times can we get hobnob?
Yeah.
The word hobnob or hobnobbing in this?
Yeah,
this
this is gonna
podcast?
be the most Guinness Book of World Records most instances of the use hobnob in podcasts, in a recording, in a single recording.
Yes, I listened to another podcast, and someone for that podcast did stats of the number of times they said certain words that they said a lot.
Yeah.
And I would love for that person to come forward and do stats for this podcast and tell me what are the words that we repeat a lot, and how many times do we say hobnob in this podcast?
Okay, well, we can move on from the hobnobbing. Oh, I also was thinking like this is the only sort of instance of something like a slug club at Hogwarts that I sort of know of. Like none of the other professors do this, I don't think. Do something
Yeah,
like
it
this, at
doesn't
least.
seem. It seems like there's some like one-on-one meetings, like Harry has one-on-ones with Snape and with Dumbledore and with Lupin that are being set up for him, or he's setting up. So I don't know if there's that kind of thing happening, like people are getting extra help or tutoring or just mentorship or something, if like the students reaching out, but they don't really talk about that a lot. And it seems crazy because there's so many really talented professors, like and they all live there, they're all there all the time. Students should probably be taking like more advantage of
Yeah.
people, and not
Yeah.
saying that like taking advantage, but take advantage of the opportunity to meet with these really talented wizards.
Like I bet there's office hours. I bet there's similar things to what you get in college, right? It's more one-on-one instruction. But what I'm saying is like the Slug Club, like there's no other professor that's trying to sort of hoard these students that have are well connected, right? And Horace sort of just comes in and restarts his old ways of kind of trying to manifest these connections, right?
Yeah, and
So I
he
don't think
doesn't
any of
even
the other
wait till he doesn't even wait till he gets to school. He does it on the train.
yeah, he's like, this needs to happen now. I need to start early because I'm only going to be here for a year, so I need to get out of here. Which
Yeah.
does he stick around for the 7th year?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, so he's second. So he maybe he doesn't plan on leaving right after the first year, but he's like, we got to start it right now. We got to get it going immediately.
Yeah. After
So.
Snape becomes headmaster, he goes right back into being head of Slytherin House. He just like resumes his old role, head of Slytherin House, Slug Club leader.
But yeah, where were we? So before that, I kind of derailed the conversation a little bit on the on who was in the Slug Club.
There's some other people that are mentioned in a flashback. So when Harry and Dumbledore go into the pensive and they see Voldemort's memories, and like it's him and it's someone called Avery, which we know is another Death Eater last name, and Lestrange are mentioned as being in this. They don't call it a Slug Club, but we can probably assume that it is the Slug Club with Horace. But it's not super clear who. We know that there's Rodolphus and Rabastin brothers. They're the Lestranges. Like Rodolphus is the one that's married to Bellatrix. But if this is Voldemort's time, I would think it's like their father. or like there's an Avery mentioned as being a Death Eater in like the modern times, but there's also an Avery, and then there's an Avery that went to school with Snape that he was friends with, and there's an Avery that went to school with Voldemort. So it must be like a family line, right?
Yeah. And then they have like previous members, Lucius Malfoy probably was in there. It just seems like a natural addition. Like we said, there was a knot in the Slug Club or just associated with Slughorn at least a little bit. And then I guess we would assume that Snape maybe when he was a student, but who knows?
Yeah, I would think so because he also brings people to the Christmas party, and Snape's invited to the Christmas party. I don't know if that's because, like, if he's inviting old members or if he's just like, oh, and he invited all the teachers.
Yeah, we need some.
Oh, like chaperones.
Yeah, we need some chaperones for the party. Make sure people don't get too raucous. So like they get out of the Slug Club meeting, and then Harry ends up tailing the Slytherins into their car, and then overhears them talking a lot about meetings. Zabini's kind of given the news to the other Slytherins, Draco, Pansy Parkinson, and the others, right? But and then that's when he's up there in the invisibility cloak, sort of just listening in.
Yeah, this is the beginning, or maybe not the beginning because they follow Draco in Diagon Alley, but this is the book of Harry being obsessed with Draco. Then this is where they get more context in Ginny too after they leave, and like she talks about hexing Zacharias Smith after they leave and before he sees the Slytherins. But yeah, that kind of like wraps it up. I do like that when they go back to the compartment in the Slytherins, like Zabini kind of gives his like rundown to the Slytherins, and that gives like more of the context of like Draco not understanding why he wasn't invited, and then Zabini talking about like how he basically thinks that Ginny is hot but doesn't want to do anything because she's a quote unquote blood traitor.
Yeah, they were kind of just this doing their little gossip club at the end there.
Okay, so question to you, Calen. If you were making your own Slug Club, he picked 6 students. So who would be your 6 people from the Harry Potter universe you would pick for your Slug Club?
So if I was doing my Slug Club, I'd probably do Fred and George. I think they can mix it up and make it a entertaining meetings at least. I think Sirius would be a good time. I think Ginny would be a good addition. Now that's all 4 Gryffindors, right? So I feel like I got to mix it up a little bit more. As far as like Hufflepuffs or Ravenclaws, because I'm not having Slytherins.
5,
bad
right?
vibes.
Wait, you said Sirius, Harry, Ginny, and the twins, right? That's 5 Gryffindors.
Okay. Yeah, so 5. So I need to put. I'll put two more in there. Maybe I'll drop Sirius.
Okay.
But I'll put like Cedric in there, and then Luna.
Oh, okay.
So
That's
nice
good.
round. No Slytherins in my Slug Club. They're bad vibes.
And you included Hufflepuff, who there was no Hufflepuff in the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I would go more for like good times than like well connected people.
Yeah.
So I'd want like Dumbledore on one of his like good days where he's joking. And yeah, Fred and George, Ginny. Maybe Mundungus just to be like a wild card, right? You gotta have someone who's like a little bit crazy.
Yeah. The butt is somebody who can be the butt of the joke and doesn't really care that they're the butt of the joke and kind of like fight back a little bit. That's sort of what you want.
Maybe I invite Slughorn because he's gonna make it a finer's things. He's gonna bring the food, like good food.
Hopefully.
And I don't know. The one thing I'll say about Slughorn that I do like or that I could appreciate about him is he really just gives himself like the princess treatment, right?
Treat yourself.
Like everything is velvet, everything is sweet treats and like living this cushy life. And why doesn't he? You know, like we all deserve to treat ourselves, and he just like lives it to the fullest.
Yeah, and somewhat literally, he's living this cushy life because they find him as a chair, right?
Yeah, it's literally a cushy
exactly.
life. Yeah, he's like the kind of person you want to go to like a spa with, or
accepting gifts from everybody who he meets. No gift is too good for him.
Yes, you want to be like a +1 with him when he gets tickets to a game or something like that. Kind of reap some of the rewards, but not have to deal with all the hobnobbing.
He's your avenue into these free events, but he's doing all the work, and he doesn't even see it as work. He just enjoys the collecting of these acquaintances.
Yeah, his life is one big cocktail party.
Yeah. That I think that's a good bow to put on Horace Slughorn. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this magical journey through the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. Next week, we will be discussing Rita Skeeter. Until then, happy reading, happy listening, and may you never be left out of the Slug Club.